The Academic Staff Union of Universities says it is ready for a showdown with the federal government over the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPPIS.
All branches of ASUU in federal universities across the country say they will shun registration for the scheme, which starts next week. Office of the Accountants General of the Federation had directed all staff of federal universities and colleges of education to enroll for the IPPIS scheme. Well, they are to provide letters of appointment, letters of promotion, birth certificates, and copies of their bank statements as officers to the institutions to conduct the exercise.
But ASUU says the policy is a violation of its rights and that any of its members who enrolls for the scheme would face disciplinary action. Well, joining us now is the public affairs analyst, Adeni Ikunu. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me this morning.
There's several back and forth. ASUU, federal government, ASUU. This has been a long time running now. Now, the federal government has said there will be no IPPIS, no pay. ASUU is saying this is dictatorial. Where do we go from here?
Well, where you'd have to go is to first of all understand that universities up until the recent instruction enjoy a level of autonomy in terms of their finances and in terms of other kind of administrative operations within universities in the country, especially now you're talking about federal universities. But what has become very worrisome would have to be taken into account the recent reports by the ICPC, of course the instruction by ASUU members to get their members of staff on the IPPIS preceded Owasonoye's report, the ICPC helmsman, that revealed that of all government institutions, two stand out as being most corrupt in terms of budgeting more for the things that they did less for or getting involved in contract, and that has to do with the academia as well as health institutions of government. And I have to say this very well, that whilst the likes of Ogundele, talking about the ASUU leader, is saying that don't do this, I think we really need to find a common ground, because the grass is not suffering. The grass is not human, but human beings who work to earn their salaries are the ones suffering at the moment. So I have to say this very clearly, that government must first of all let what they've worked for be paid to them while discussion goes on. For instance, Owasonoye has said he's going to release names. For instance, let me tell you this. If you're talking about those that have actually, pummeled and adjusted and, as they say, padded the monies that should come to them, you find like Usman Danfodio University, particularly the teaching hospital, I hear that's in excess of 600 million. University of Benin Teaching Hospital, that's about 1.1 trillion.
But these are not revelations that just emerged now.
No, I'm saying that the comprehensive report that was put together, where ministries, departments, and agencies to the tune of 300 were actually critically audited, reveals that something of this nature is happening. As a matter of fact, away from the academia and health institutions in the country will be the likes of the Ministry of Water Resources, where it was found out that close to 20 directors in the past 3 months have actually, sent and received.
So there is indeed a cogent ground
there are cogent reasons why everybody should be on that, on the IPPIS. But this is just one of the very many instances. But I have to say here that government must also understand that there are certain guidelines, there are certain rule books that gives the universities autonomy. And if you look at it, one of the cases or one of the things referred to would be researches, would have to be study grants. The IPPIS is very cumbersome. I've worked in government before, in the civil service, and I know that certain things were not done because of the bureaucracy of managing the finance.
Let's end on that note. Adeni Ikunu, thank you very much for your contributions.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me this morning.
The Academic Staff Union of Universities says it is ready for a showdown with the federal government over the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPPIS.
Branches of ASUU in federal universities across the country say they will shun registration for the IPPIS, which starts next week. Office of the Accountants General of the Federation had directed all staff of federal universities and colleges of education to enroll for the scheme. They are to provide letters of appointment, letters of promotion, birth certificates, and copies of their bank statement, as officers would be in the institutions to conduct the exercise.
But ASUU says the policy is a violation of its right and that any of its members who enrolls for the scheme would face disciplinary action. Well, joining us now is a public affairs analyst, Adini Kunu. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me once again.
All right, so ASUU has vowed to shun the scheme. And of course, the federal government is saying no IPPIS and no pay. Now, how do we sort out these issues now? Do we say, despite the fact that ASUU has been independent, universities rather, have been independent all their lives, the federal government should allow them be, or they should join the fray and get the benefits that the IPPIS presents?
I think the federal government is being too high-handed by instructing that people who want to conduct verification go into the premises of higher institutions to commence that without resorting to the necessary authorities within the universities or higher institutions to give appropriate guidelines as to where and how such will be carried out. And I think that's the position of the academics. I have to say that with every sense of truth here. And at the same time, government must understand that even if you're talking about international diplomacy, the way you would relate or your international policies with countries in the Arab region will definitely differ from how you relate with countries who are in the West. It then tells you that government must understand that when you are dealing with people who are scholars, who really are part of the intelligentsia, as it were, within the academia, you have to show restraint, understanding to, at least, you need to know how things are done there. So in the first place, you're sending people into the university. The vice-chancellor should be the one to give instruction as to where such will be conducted, the auditorium earmarked for such activities. Then you have to instruct all the other persons.
But is that the bone of contention here?
No, that's, I'm just taking, I'm just trying to use the approach of government who has said, we're conducting this. That simply means certain miscommunication, certain approaches must not have been, was perhaps breached underneath before this has come to the fore.
And even coming in, looking at the position of the union now, the national body,
yes,
now they are also asking for a governing council, perhaps in line with the VC line you just dropped.
Of course.
They said, let a governing council from each university govern the scheme, and this council will be accountable to the federal government if they still insist on this IPPIS technology.
Let me tell you why they're requesting that. I know people, except of course I'm not going to mention them on television, who with government, when I was still with government, they had problems with IPPIS for over a year. Some of them, their salaries were not paid. And do you know the funny part, which is actually not funny? If you have a challenge, you always have to travel to the nation's capital to resolve it. The mail sent, the messages sent, oftentimes don't get responded to. And at the same time, let's look at it. We're talking about those in the academia who have to do certain things as far as time is concerned. If, for instance, they hold different political views, it is likely that if they really are under the IPPIS, certain things may be used against them. We've seen certain things of that nature happen. Now, let's say every university has governing councils. And the governing councils have its responsibilities over all other persons. So for this particular fear not to become founded, you definitely have to ensure that the governing council that have been administering a lot of things, you let the governing council take the responsibility rather than just expose the universities. Look at government agencies and the challenges they are bedeviled by. So you don't subject university institutions or institutions to the same. It's going to be ridiculed.
All right. Adeni Ikuno, of course, a public affairs analyst, thank you very much for talking to us.
I appreciate the privilege.